Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about the first batch of the Transfigured gems that just got released. I want to hone in on one gem in specific that kind of gave me a lot of wind again, because I was not really sure what I want to play. I was saying I might actually play Spell Totems and just see what happens. But since they actually released not just gameplay, but the full gem info, I now have a skill that I actually want to play. So there's a lot of interesting gems here. If you want to check them out yourselves, I can link them down below in the description. But the one thing that caught me completely by surprise is the Caustic Arrow of Poison. Now, in case you guys didn't know, I already played a Poison version of Caustic Arrow before with the base gem, just ignoring the damage over time scaling from the ground effect. And since it can overlap and shotgun its hits, I just focused on Poison from the get-go, and it was incredible. Now, their gimmick with this is they basically removed the dot pool of Caustic Arrow, and in return, they give us a ton of added chaos damage, round about as much as Scourge Arrow gives you, and they give us 40% chance to poison. And the funny thing is, I already played this build before with the Scuffed gem. Now, this was one of the smoothest feared kills that I ever have. There is some real downsides with this build. For example, it's not solo self-hunt friendly, and the defenses and the recovery back then were kind of scuffed. I had to fix them with some gear. But that was on a Trickster. Before there was Wilma's Requital, before there was Pathfinder, right? There was nothing like that back then. I had to stack like frenzy charges with Snake Pit to get my chance to poison up. And one of the things that this totem does a lot better than other totem builds is the damage is more immediate. Sure, poison. The poison duration is not very long though. It's at maximum like 4 seconds. But you don't have to wait for a fuse. You don't have to wait for Toxic Rain to fall down. So this is the coziest totem in general. So I'm just super surprised, and I'd be stupid not to try it again and play it again. But in case you guys are a little bit confused, because most of you guys will probably have played Caustic Arrow, just Dot or in the Death's Oath or something like that, you might be asking, well, it has really low base damage. What the hell are you going to do with poison there? Now, these projectiles actually shotgun. So if you see, for example, I spec'd in +1 from the Scion right here, so you can see that I have 2 projectiles. And they fire very near to each other. So, and if you put Volley on top, you can see now I have 6 projectiles. They're overlapping almost perfectly. How well do they overlap? Well, you can overlap up to 7 projectiles if you have the 20% increased area of effect from the bow notes right here. I don't even have this on that character, but that is what you need to realistically get 7 projectiles on the target. It doesn't really stop there though, because they increased the radius by 0.2 from the quality. However, they did remove the 10% AoE, so I have no idea how this is going to play out. But there is a good chance that you might be overlapping 8 or maybe even 9 projectiles now with Rain of Splinters, which just costs you a jewel slot. But that I cannot confirm right now because we don't have the gem to play with. But if you look at the 70% base damage, if we can shotgun up to 7 projectiles, we can do 70 times 7. You can see there's a lot of damage in there. You also get added chaos damage on top, which very much helps early, so you don't have to get something like a dark scorn early. You can just run a normal fizzbow and you'll still have a ton of base damage. But let's look at how crazy the change is. I said I played it with the Scuff gem, right? I played this build just on normal Caustic Arrow and it felt totally fine. What happened with Caustic Arrow of Poison? First up, there was no flat damage on the initial Caustic Arrow. This is free. If you're kind of like curious how much damage this is, we're gonna talk about it in a second. The 40% chance to poison doesn't only free up Herald of Agony, not having to use Herald of Agony, it also means that I'm saving 2 passive points that I would otherwise have to allocate. And this is a very passive point heavy tree, so that is incredible. And as well as that, we got 10% more base damage. If you look at Caustic Arrow right now, Caustic Arrow right now, at level 20 has 64.4% base damage, and that goes up to now 70%. So that is the equal of a level 31 Caustic Arrow. Sounds crazy, isn't that crazy, but it's still 10% more damage. And all you lose is the dot pool, which we don't scale. In case you guys are interested, in my endgame PoB from back then, the dot pool accounted for like, I don't know, like maybe 1% of my damage. Now, I tried to find some of my old PoBs and did some napkin math. This is not perfect, but what the flat damage, the chance to poison, and the base damage would do for these builds at that level. If you get it early, if it's very easy to get, then through level 50 to 70, finishing the campaign, you would have 84% more damage. At level 80 to 95, basically into endgame and maps, But before you get your Covenant, so a big boost of flat damage, it would be 58% more damage. And then after Covenant, the buff goes down a little bit because now you have a ton of flat added damage, but you still get 22% more damage. Once again, though, I played this in 3.19, and I want to quickly talk about all the changes that have happened since then that either benefit or downgrade the build. The first one was Wilma's Requital got released. Believe it or not, I played this build before Wilma's Requital was even a thing. So now we have some absolutely crazy totem scaling, even more reason to go only totem. Back then it was kinda hybrid-ish. Now there's no reason to. The second thing is we now get +2 arrows on tree. Believe it or not, I played this build when there was no +2 arrows. Back then, though, Rainbow Splinters was pretty cheap, so it's not like it's that big of a deal. Nowadays, Rainbow Splinters cost like 5 divines, 6 divines. It's going to be a very late upgrade, but still, just being able to get that on like level 40, level 50 is pretty insane, and I mean, we'll see once we do the test run. Also, I was Trickster. I was not able to go Pathfinder. And Pathfinder fixes 2 things that are super important for this build. Not even talking about stuff like Poison Prolif, or now being able to go Explodey. More on that in a second. We also get a ton of recovery. On my current version, I have around about 1,600 life regen per second from my life flask. All I have to do is press it every 7.4 seconds, which back then I was just flask pianoing like crazy. It was one of the things that I hated the most about the build. And the second thing was I did get to level 96, but the build was kinda squishy. And that is something you can also address with stronger flasks, better flask uptime, but also with Master Surgeon in tandem with Petrified Blood. So still, no tank, not tanky, but it is a lot more suitable, even for softcore, a lot more suitable. Now, the next thing after that, so Pathfinder is huge. Another thing that Pathfinder gives you, actually, before we move on, is Wither. So back in the day, Caustic Arrow would give you Wither with its alt quality or its Helm enchant. And those are now both gone. As you can see right here, chance to inflict Wither for 2 seconds on hit. After Pathfinder came out and it gave you Wither anyways, I thought one of the big payoffs of Caustic Arrows are done. But now that we don't have those anymore, here we are with Pathfinder again. And this build dishes out like 100 arrows per second, so you don't even need Withering Step. You're just going to be full on Wither all the time. So Pathfinder fixes defenses and recovery. Also, we don't need to go Snake Bites anymore. In case you guys don't know, it was very annoying to actually fix your chance to poison. So I had to go Snake Bites, and I don't have to do that anymore. So on the new build, I have Explodey, and I have Poison Prolif. On the old one, I had none of those. Now, the only nerf that I have recorded, other than, I guess, this cluster got nerfed, so Dirty Techniques is not really worth taking anymore, but that only frees up another cluster jewel, and I don't even know if that's worse or anything like that. Either way, Temporal Chains got nerfed. That is really the only thing I could look at, but all that means is that my poisons are not as long, which doesn't really matter at the end of the day, unless I'm against bosses. As you can see right here, my damage is very, very compact at 3.8 seconds. I kind of kept the biggest change for last, though, because this build doesn't need Darkscorn anymore, and that is because of the tinctures that we have this league. So if you can see right here, Warden of the Magi is one of the early game classes that people love because you get 30% movement speed while leveling if you just have no sockets on your boots, or no socketed gems, I should say. And then later, you can get a tincture. Tinctures are these things that you put on your weapons, and they give you certain effects. And there is one tincture right here that says all damage can poison. That is not a mod that you need to roll. That is literally just an implicit of one of the types of the tinctures. And if you guys ever played Lightning Arrow, you know exactly what that means. That is, you can have one of these girthy bows that have a ton of flat added elemental damage. And if it now all of a sudden can poison, you can even craft on stuff like Chaos Multi at the end or whatnot. This is not even like a great bow. This is tier 2, tier 3, and Essence crafted. And it has like a okay attack speed roll and a crafted mod. That is already 30% more damage than a Darkscorn. Just imagine where you can go from there. And on top of that, with the tinctures, the next note is this. Flasks adjacent to applied tinctures gain free charges, yada yada yada. But you also get 30% increased effect of flasks when you hit an enemy with a weapon recently. And obviously you can increase your Quicksilver Flask, you can increase your Jade Flask, whatever you want. But in very end game, we're looking at some absolute shenanigans with Progenesis on Pathfinder. Maybe even Progenesis plus Petrified Blood plus Blood Notch. I don't know if I'm gonna take the build that far as a League starter, but either way, it goes pretty deep. So yeah, I'm just kind of stunned that this exists. and I'm just incredibly hyped. Now, one thing you might say at the end here is, how? You don't know when you're gonna get this. Well, I already leveled the build with the normal Caustic Arrow, and it levels perfectly fine. You go Caustic Arrow with Toxic Rain, then you go Toxic Rain, Ballista, and after that you go Caustic Arrow, Ballista. Once you have the Wither from the first lab, and you're good to go, in theory. We're gonna try it out again. Obviously, that has been 4 leaks ago. Maybe some stuff changed, but I can't really see how it's not even smoother, because now we have +2 projectiles we're leveling. Either way, I'm gonna try this out on stream over on twitch.tv/Palsteron. If you guys want to check that out, it will probably the next 2 days or something. But I will keep you up to date. Obviously, this could all change if there's another gem that's even more broken. But this is what I'm looking at right now. I know another Ballista build. Don't shoot me, please. But this is just too juicy to not try. Hope you guys are enjoying the Transfigured gems. Some of them look pretty damn strong. And I'm pretty sure some of them we're going to try once we get into the league and get some currency. But more onto that in the future. With that being said, since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.